Before muscle cars ruled the highways and chrome monsters filled the driveways, there was one humble Chevrolet that quietly reshaped America's roads, and maybe even its future. It didn't roar with power or flaunt extravagance, yet it became the heart of a nation just learning how to dream again. In 1950, you could step outside any suburban home and see it gleaming under the morning sun, the Chevrolet Styleline Deluxe. To most, it was just another family car. But to millions of Americans rebuilding their lives after war, this sedan symbolized something much bigger: progress, hope, and the belief that the best years were still ahead. This wasn't the story of a supercar or a luxury icon. It was the story of the car that carried America into prosperity, a quiet hero that defined an entire generation. And once you discover what made the Styleline Deluxe so special, you'll understand why it's still remembered today. 1. The world that gave birth to the Styleline. The year was 1950. The war was over, factories were humming again, and America was writing a new chapter of optimism. Soldiers had returned home, towns were expanding, and the suburbs were beginning to take shape. People weren't just dreaming of a good life, they were finally living it. And at the center of that dream was a new kind of desire: to own a car that could take the family anywhere. The open road had become a symbol of freedom. Fathers drove to work, mothers ran errands, and children looked out from the back seat as the horizon seemed endless. But the car market was quickly turning into a battlefield. Ford, with its tough V8 engines, bragged about raw power. Plymouth promised practicality and low prices. And Chevrolet, caught between the two, had to figure out how to offer something more meaningful than horsepower or bargain deals. What America needed wasn't another fast car. It needed a dependable companion, one that reflected the growing middle class and their hopes for a stable, better future. And Chevrolet saw that opportunity clearly. They realized that if they could build a car that blended style, comfort, and reliability, it could become more than transportation. It could become a piece of American identity itself. And that's when the blueprint for something timeless began to take shape: the car that would soon be known as the Styleline Deluxe. 2. The birth of the Styleline Deluxe. Chevrolet unveiled the Styleline series in 1949, but by 1950, the Deluxe trim took center stage, and it wasn't just a name. It was a statement. After years of wartime production, Americans were craving elegance and a touch of luxury, even in affordable cars. The Styleline Deluxe delivered exactly that. From the moment it rolled off the assembly line, it stood apart. The body lines were smoother, the chrome accents were brighter, and the proportions were perfectly balanced, not too flashy, not too plain. Its wide grille, rounded fenders, and elegant beltline gave it a confident, graceful stance that said, "I've made it." Under the hood, you'd find Chevrolet's dependable 216 cubic inch Stovebolt inline-six engine, not built to race but to last. It was simple, rugged, and easy to maintain, which made it a favorite among families who wanted reliability over thrills. The car offered a 3-speed manual transmission, but by 1950, Chevrolet introduced something that would change driving forever: the Powerglide automatic transmission, the first fully automatic gearbox ever offered in a low-priced American car. That innovation alone transformed the driving experience. It made the Styleline Deluxe effortless to drive, especially for women and older buyers who wanted comfort over clutch control. Chevrolet wasn't just building a car, it was shaping the way America learned to drive again. And this wasn't a coincidence. Every curve, every feature of the Styleline Deluxe had one purpose: to make ordinary people feel extraordinary behind the wheel. 3. Inside the car that defined comfort. Step inside a 1950 Chevrolet Styleline Deluxe, and you're immediately taken back to a time when cars felt warm, inviting, and personal. There were no digital screens, no plastic dashboards, just a handcrafted charm that made every drive feel special. The interior was a soft blend of cloth and chrome, where attention to detail mattered. The dashboard, symmetrical and simple, featured large, easy-to-read gauges framed in bright metal trim. The steering wheel, big and elegant, gave drivers a sense of control and pride, almost as if they were commanding a ship rather than a car. Even the seats told a story. The deluxe models came with thicker padding and beautifully stitched upholstery, designed for long road trips and smooth rides across America's growing highway system. Families would load up on weekends, drive to picnics, or take spontaneous road trips. The Styleline made travel feel like an event, not just a necessity. The car also came with optional features that felt luxurious for its time, things like a push-button radio, heater, and even a clock integrated into the dash. For the average American family, these weren't just features. They were small glimpses of the future. It wasn't about showing off, it was about belonging. Chevrolet understood something deep about human nature. People didn't just want to get somewhere, they wanted to feel good getting there. 4. The cultural impact and legacy of the Styleline Deluxe. By the early 1950s, the Chevrolet Styleline Deluxe had become more than just a car. It was a cultural symbol. It represented stability, progress, and the pride of post-war America. At a time when families were rebuilding their lives and dreaming bigger than ever before, the Styleline became part of that dream. You'd see it parked in front of white picket fence houses, cruising down Main Street on Sunday afternoons, or gleaming under gas station lights during summer nights. It wasn't flashy or loud, and that's exactly why people loved it. It stood for dependability, something Americans deeply valued after years of uncertainty. Chevrolet's marketing leaned into that idea, portraying the Styleline as a car for everyone. It wasn't a rich man's toy or a limited edition. It was the car that brought freedom to the masses. Soldiers returning from war bought it as their first new car. Young families saw it as a step toward the good life. It was the American dream on 4 wheels. But there was another reason the Styleline became iconic: Hollywood. The car appeared in countless films and photos, often as a quiet background character symbolizing hope, modesty, or the simple joy of the open road. Even today, collectors and classic car fans see it not just as an old vehicle, but as a piece of living history, a reminder of a time when design, comfort, and emotion came together in perfect harmony. 5. The engineering and performance that surprised everyone. At first glance, the 1950 Chevrolet Styleline Deluxe might look like a simple family car, but under that curvy steel body, it packed some surprising engineering for its time. Chevrolet had just refined its famous Stovebolt 6 engine, a 216 cubic inch inline-six that became legendary for its durability and smooth operation. It wasn't built for racing, it was built to last. And that's exactly what made it stand out. This engine produced around 90 horsepower, which might not sound like much today, but back then it was enough to give the car a confident, steady drive. Paired with a 3-speed manual transmission, the Styleline delivered a quiet, vibration-free experience that owners described as effortless. But what really set it apart was how Chevrolet focused on reliability. Mechanics praised it for being easy to service, and owners loved that it could handle rough country roads without complaint. The car's suspension was tuned for comfort, soaking up bumps and making even long-distance trips enjoyable, something not every car of the era could claim. In an age when competitors were experimenting with radical designs and new technologies, Chevrolet took a more grounded approach. They didn't chase trends, they perfected the basics. And that strategy worked. The Styleline became one of the most trusted cars in the country, earning Chevrolet a reputation that would carry the brand through the next decade. But while the Styleline was technically solid, what came next would completely change the direction of Chevrolet, and it started with a bold design move that no one expected. 6. The bold transition and the end of an era. By 1952, the Chevrolet Styleline had reached the peak of its success, but change was coming fast. America was stepping into a new age of design, and the sleek curves of the early 50s were giving way to sharper, more futuristic lines. People wanted cars that looked like they came from the jet age, and Chevrolet knew it couldn't stay stuck in the past. In 1953, the company retired the Styleline and replaced it with the all-new Bel Air, a car that would go on to define an entire decade of American style. But the end of the Styleline wasn't a failure, it was evolution. It had done its job perfectly, re-establishing Chevrolet after the war, winning the trust of millions, and proving that reliability and design could coexist beautifully. Still, for those who owned one, the farewell was bittersweet. The Styleline had become a family member, the car that took kids to school, parents to work, and friends to countless adventures. Its simple lines and honest engineering carried memories that outlasted its time on the road. Today, when collectors restore a 1950 Styleline Deluxe, they're not just bringing back an old car. They're reviving a moment in history, a symbol of optimism, craftsmanship, and the golden spirit of mid-century America. But even after it disappeared from showrooms, the Styline's influence didn't fade away. In fact, its DNA lived on in every Chevrolet that followed, shaping the design philosophy of an entire generation. 7. The legacy that refused to die. Decades after it vanished from production, the 1950 Chevrolet Styleline Deluxe still refuses to be forgotten. Car shows across America continue to feature its timeless curves gleaming under the sun, and every restored model seems to tell a personal story, often one that's been passed down through generations. For many collectors, it's more than nostalgia. It's about preserving the spirit of a time when cars had soul. Unlike many vehicles that faded into obscurity, the Styleline aged gracefully. Its body design, once considered ordinary, is now admired for its simplicity and balance. Its engine, once standard, is now a symbol of unbreakable reliability. And for those who grew up seeing one in their driveway, hearing that soft hum of the inline-six engine is like opening a window to the past. Online communities still buzz with stories of barn finds, dusty old Stylines discovered after decades of silence, restored with love and patience. Each one reminds us how deeply this car connected with everyday people. It didn't need chrome fins or a roaring V8s to leave a mark. Its power was emotional. It captured the heart of a nation moving forward with hope. But what's most remarkable is how the Styleline quietly influenced everything that came after it, from the iconic Bel Air to the Impala. Its DNA runs through the veins of Chevrolet history, proving that greatness doesn't always come from flash or fame. Sometimes, it comes from quiet consistency. The 1950 Chevrolet Styleline Deluxe wasn't built to shock the world. It was built to serve it. And in doing so, it became something far greater than anyone expected. It wasn't the fastest or the flashiest or even the most powerful car of its time. But it was honest, dependable, and deeply human. A reflection of post-war America itself. It carried soldiers home, families forward, and dreams down roads that stretched to new beginnings. Every curve, every hum of that straight-six engine, every chrome detail, all of it told a story about who America was becoming, resilient, hopeful, and endlessly optimistic. Today, when you see a Styline rolling down a street or sitting proudly at a classic car meet, you're not just looking at a vintage vehicle. You're looking at a time capsule, a piece of history that still whispers the same message it did in 1950. Keep moving forward, no matter what. And maybe that's why, after all these decades, the 1950 Chevrolet Styleline Deluxe still holds a place in people's hearts. It's not just a car from the past. It's a reminder that true legends don't need to shout to be remembered. They just keep driving quietly through time.